terrorism, hatred, and racism in Antelope, California. On October 28, 2018, at approximately around 2:30 a.m., my daughter was viciously and maliciously assaulted by several male assailants. Note, one of the assailants' attackers lives in the same apartment complex downstairs from my daughter's apartment. As my daughter was exiting her vehicle that morning, she was pepper sprayed in her face and then pulled out of her vehicle as several people kicked, punched, tased, and knocked her down to the street pavement, where they further beat her into unconsciousness. Later that morning, my daughter contacted me and came to see me. Her right eye was extremely blackened, as well as very swollen. She had a slight knife cut on her right cheek and facial area, and her body was very bruised up from the beating that she had sustained. As my daughter is a single parent raising 4 children ages 18, 15 years old, and 2 twin toddlers ages 15 months old, she was very concerned about the welfare and the security of all of her children, who were all still in her apartment at the time. At approximately around 11 a.m., I, my daughter, and my son all went to my daughter's apartment for the sole purpose of gathering up all of her children and then escorting them to a place of safety. As we all arrived to my daughter's apartment complex, we noticed that one of my daughter's attackers was sitting inside of his car in the carport area, which faces my daughter's upstairs apartment. The attacker gazed over at us but said nothing to us at the time of our arrival. I, my daughter, and my son all proceeded to go up the stairway and then entered into my daughter's apartment, where all of her children were awaiting for us. I carried my 15-month-old grandson in my arms, and the rest of my family members followed close behind me. As we all reached the bottom of the outside stairway, the man inside of his car that was mentioned about earlier suddenly exited his car and asked us if we had a problem with him. I said, "No, we don't have a problem with you. We just came here to pick up our children." At this point, the man said something along the lines of, "You want to mess with our pride?" And then he proceeded to charge at me while I was still holding my grandson. My daughter saw what was happening and managed to grab my grandson just in a nick of time before I was aggressively tackled to the ground by the assailant. The next thing that occurred is that several of the assailant's friends came out of nowhere and began an all-out attack upon my son and me. As I was still on the ground with the one attacker still on top of me, someone else was simultaneously tasing me at the same time. I finally managed to get back on my feet again, and at this point, all of the attackers turned on my son like a wild pack of wolves. They knocked my son down to the ground and then began vehemently stomping upon him with their feet. Suddenly, another assailant came running out of the downstairs apartment with a firearm, handgun in hand. He then fired the weapon off recklessly, and one of the gunshots barely missed one of my grandchildren. The gunman then pointed his gun directly at my son as the other attackers continued to viciously stomp upon him. I shouted out to the assailants that was enough and to please stop stomping on my son. However, they all just ignored me and kept on doing what they were doing. When I attempted to help my son, the man with the firearm pointed his weapon directly at me and verbally threatened to shoot me if I came any closer to help my son. Based upon one of the police reports, it was my eldest granddaughter who called 911 and reported the gun incident. Responding to shots fired 911 calls, several Sacramento Sheriff's deputies arrived at the apartment complex. After the sheriff deputies had conducted several interviews from eyewitnesses whom all described to them who the shooter was, I was in turn arrested for an alleged PC 245 subdivisions A4 assault with means likely to produce great bodily injury, GBI, along with some type of alleged trespassing charge as well. When I requested to the sheriff deputy who arrested me that I wanted to countercharge the assailants who had attacked my daughter, son, and me, the officer refused to do so. He then proceeded to take me to the Sacramento County Jail, where I was detained for 7 long agonizing weeks as an innocent victim. All that I have stated here within the contents of this letter of statement is true and can further be substantiated by way of the video-audio footage that captured all of the events described within this statement. After law enforcement officers had arrived at the scene of the crime, they were told exactly who the gunman is, what he was wearing, what he looks like, etc., as well as who the other assailants are and who had attacked me and my family members. Instead, the Sacramento Sheriff deputies opted not to arrest any of the true perpetrators of the crimes that had actually been initiated by them. As I and my family members have truly been the victims of this assault and battery with a deadly weapon that was wreaked upon us, I truly do feel that we were all the victims of terrorism and a hate crime as well that was racially motivated, which took place in Antelope, California. Epilogue. When the gunman was questioned by the Sacramento County Sheriff's deputies as to whether or not he had possession of a firearm and as to whether or not he played a key role in the shooting of the firearm, the gunman claimed that he was in the downstairs apartment at the time, in the bathroom, getting ready to shoot up heroin. When the sheriff deputies questioned the gunman as to why he had gun residue on one of his hands, the gunman claimed that he was at a gun range with a friend the day before, and that the gun he fired at the gun range that particular day actually belonged to his friend. The sheriff deputies also discovered that the gunman was an ex-felon and had actually served incarceration time before for possession of a firearm. At this particular point, the gunman's story should have been further investigated. However, to our knowledge, it never was. Clearly, the video footage taken on October 28, 2018, captured the gunman outside of the apartment that he claimed he had never left outside of, firing his weapon off more than once. Therefore, the gunman falsified his statements to the law enforcement officers that had questioned him. Initially, once the district attorney's office had received a copy of the video footage depicting exactly what actually took place on October 28, 2018, within the first week that they had received and viewed the footage, they in turn claimed that the footage had been tampered with in some way and that there were missing segments of the video. Of course, this is not true at all. And on December 18, 2018, after being held in jail for 7 weeks as an innocent victim, the district attorney finally dismissed all of my cases based upon insufficient evidence. Additionally, the defense attorneys handling my cases continued to prolong my cases by asking for at least 3 continuances on my behalf without conferring with me first, which aided in prolonging my stay in the Sacramento County Jail longer than was necessary. When I finally exercised my Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial, a preliminary hearing was finally scheduled to take place on December 26, 2018. Surprisingly, I was called back into court on the date previously stated, and all of my cases were dismissed. In conclusion, the video footage that was recorded on October 28, 2018, clearly demonstrates my innocence of the felony charges that I was alleged to have committed. I only seek fair and impartial justice regarding this travesty of injustice. By running this story on your various news outlets, radio stations, newspapers, and various internet outlets as well, will aid tremendously in bringing to justice all of the persons who are truly responsible for the alleged crimes that I was falsely accused of and jailed for 7 long agonizing weeks. In conclusion, and in essence, I was falsely accused of crimes I did not commit. And the very sad part about this whole ordeal is that the real perpetrators and criminals are still out there in a position possibly to commit these same crimes again upon some other innocent victims and persons all over again. Hey,